What's happening, y'all? This is Austin and Alexander, the brothers who are running the Lexington and Concord podcast, brought to you by 2 If by C Tactical Gun Shop, as the founders intended. We're trying for some other sponsorships, so we just say brands that we love.
Should we
Um,
say redacted industries?
this episode is actually brought to you by Redacted Industries. Big shout out to them. They're out there working on some really cool FRTs.
Mhm.
We've been doing some alpha and beta testing for them. They've got some really cool stuff. Really integrating a lot of 3D printing into firearms manufacturing, which is really where the future of firearms manufacturing is. So big shout out to Redacted, doing really cool things. If you're looking to get into FRTs, a great place to start. FRTs are definitely a
No.
serious thing. And you know what's not a serious thing?
The NFA?
The NFA. Anyways, um, yeah, we just want to give a shout out to all of the redcoats who work in Washington for that three-letter agency that likes to restrict people's rights and like set houses on fire and burn people alive and shoot moms while they're holding their kids, stuff like that.
Good luck to their new boss.
Yeah, good luck to their new boss.
Mm.
I don't really care who it is. They could hire my favorite person in the world, and I would be like, "Well, you're dead to me now." But anyways,
Brandon Herrera?
well, I mean, Brendan Herrera was pushing for it, and he was like, "Look, I think I'd be great for the job. I'd walk in first day, fire everyone, and just close the branch."
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, "That guy knows what's up."
Yeah. Well, too bad that didn't happen. Though we might get him in Congress, though. That's high hopes there. Texas, please go out and put our boy Brandon in.
Yeah,
And if Brandon's actually listening, come on the show anytime.
yeah. We're looking forward to the AK-50. Oh, sorry.
Yikes. Yikes.
Just had to hit that
For
one.
for my general manager that's been waiting for a few years, I'm
We're,
gonna
we're,
I see a tear.
we're still fans. We're still
Oh,
fans.
always.
But yeah, it's kind of a cool day. Today's Ash Wednesday. I think that it's always important to talk about the most important thing in the world, which is the Lord and your relationship with the Lord. Spending some time with Him. Be remiss not to mention that. And also, the United States beat Sweden in overtime in the Olympics. Who knows? Maybe by the next episode, the U.S. will be out of it. But I'm excited today. I almost had a heart attack about 3 different times. But we are Lexington and Concord
Mhm.
podcast, and we are pro-American. And when the Olympics are on, it's just a fun time to cheer for your country. And we've been stoked to watch some events.
Yeah. And shout out to the women's team. They are
Just
absolutely.
a wagon,
I mean,
like a
that's
wagon.
they've allowed one goal the entire
Yeah,
time. It's a level of dominance. To be honest with you, I don't know if I've fully seen in any sport in Olympic, at
it's
least
like
in my lifetime.
it's like the other teams aren't even playing the same
No,
sport. So yeah, the U.S. women's team just great job representing the United States. Really awesome, fun to
a,
watch.
a lot of Minnesota talent.
A lot
So
of Minnesota talent.
appreciate you representing us. And
Not as much Alabama talent, but we're working on that.
yeah, we'll try to get there. Seems like we're getting more snow currently right now than they are in Italy.
Yeah,
They were saying
yeah.
the snow is rough up there, and I'm like, well, as of today, you can have all you want.
It was fun today because I came over from the house and it was like competing in the luge the
Yeah,
entire time.
yeah.
But anyways, today we've been out a little bit. We've both been kind of busy. We obviously in Minnesota. I had a lot of things that have been going on. It's not been the most fun time to be here since the first of the year.
But we were trending on Twitter there for a while. So
We
there's that.
yeah,
There was
yeah.
that.
Anytime Minnesota is trending on Twitter, we know it's not for winning sports championships.
Nope.
So
And they will whatever
unless it's the
whenever
frost.
I was gonna say whatever sport actually finally wins a championship here. Twitter probably won't exist
The,
because a new app will have existed because it's gonna be that long.
the frost though,
Yeah,
to back-to-back champs.
I guess that's
So
fair. But there's also only like 6 teams or 7 teams. But
it doesn't matter. We'll take it what we can get.
I mean,
At least it's
there's
hockey.
the links too that did win quite a few there. If we want to bring up the WNBA,
But frost.
yeah,
Anyways,
we'll leave that to Shane Gillis to talk about the WNBA.
Yeah, we've been out. Obviously, big news for us. We were out in the desert for a little while, out in Las Vegas, Viva Las Vegas, which is just not the greatest place in the world.
Oh no,
You
it's a
love it.
land. It's the land of Elvis. I mean,
You
how
love
bad
it.
can it be? It's the
Yeah.
king, baby.
And we were out there doing a shot show. So kind of a big year. Shot show seems to get bigger and bigger every year. I mean, I'm not sure I've walked so far every single day of that show, along with all of the ranges that
Yeah.
you have to go to and all the parties and everything like that. And I know everybody's like, "Oh man, you get to go to Shot Show and you get to go to parties," and it's like, "Yeah, I'm not there to party."
And it's
Like,
pretty. You're just worn out by the time that 6 p.m. hits, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna be out till 1 a.m. And then,
yeah,
by the way, back at Shot Show at like 7 a.m. the next day. So it's quick turnarounds for.
yeah, a lot like the dirty side that few people want to talk about it, like Shot Show. A lot of that stuff is like you kind of have to go. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some really good relationships. You want to talk to some folks. Get to spend some time with our buddy Ian.
Mhm.
McCollum. But for the most part, with a lot of relationships with companies, you got to take a little bit of time to just thank them for working with you, sending you stuff, doing reviews and stuff like that. So that's kind of the backside. But regardless, let's talk a little bit about SHOT Show. What is exciting up and coming for 2026? We're coming out of a pretty hot 2025. So actually,
Yep.
I'm gonna change things up. I said we were gonna talk about SHOT Show, but let's change this up. 2025, big year for firearms federally. I think.
Correct.
I think that's correct to say, hey, we had a pretty positive year as far as the federal government goes and what we're doing
By
um,
federal standards, I would say
by federal
yes.
standards.
Yes.
We're doing pretty solid, right? However,
Mm.
we're starting to see a backlash from states, which I suppose there's kind of a dichotomy here that I kind of want to discuss, right? So number one, I think both of us are not a fan of the federal government.
No.
And the idea of the United States of America is a very limited government. However, I would also argue that the idea of the United States of America is when we look at our Bill of Rights, our Constitution, we have a certain standard that you have to adhere to if you
Hmm.
want to be a part of the United States of America. And we see a direct attack
I would
on
say
that.
actually, it's the 14th Amendment literally says that.
Yeah,
It was literally
100%.
put into place because we had states in post-Civil War. They were like, we're just going to not honor the 13th Amendment. That's specifically what it was written for, of course, but it applies to all the Bill of Rights. And the 14th Amendment was ratified very quickly after the Civil War. So you got to think, you had the 13th Amendment in 1864, and then you had the 14th Amendment. It was like 1867 or 1868. It's a very short period of time, which means that they realized how important it was to know if you want to be a part of this union, which, yes, granted, you tried to separate, but you're a part of this union, you have to agree to the binding principles that this union is founded upon. Otherwise, then what's the point? Like, why at that point, then Texas could just be a republic if they didn't want to be a part of it. Doesn't make any
100%.
sense to if we're going to expend the security guarantees, and that's really when we talk about a republic, what we're talking about. The security guarantees, whether it be trade securities through imports, exportations, which is what Article One powers does set out, or when it comes to, of course, immigration, which has been in the news a lot lately, or when it comes to actual like defense of the nation. So we're
Or
talking War of 1812, those type of things. All those things do cost money. They cost manpower and they cost time. So in order, I mean, if you think of the government as a business ish, in order for it to be worth it, then you're going to have to agree to the things that we set upon to
there's a
make
set
it.
of rules to be in the
Yeah,
club.
and I think what's exciting, I do want to say about 2025, and it was at the end of 2025, so I guess you could make the argument we won't get these answers until 2026. But regardless, for a positive thing for the federal government side, as someone who likes to nerd out on law, especially firearm law, we saw the federal government go after the U.S. Virgin Islands over their very restrictive gun control regime, and it's the first time that the federal government of any party or even era has ever attempted to pose the Bill of Rights upon our territories. So while yes, if you're in Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, or some other places, you are technically a U.S. citizen. While yes, you don't vote in federal elections, we are guaranteeing security exchanges for you, and the trade bargains that the United States signs, you are a beneficiary of. But you're not afforded the same rights in the Constitution, technically, or at least it hasn't been held that way as it comes to firearms. Now, when it sure, some of the other amendments, that's not necessarily true, but we all know it doesn't end with firearms. Restrictions that start in firearms tend to find their way into the other amendments, like it starts here. So I will say, shout out for that. That was kind of cool to see. Hoping the courts side the way I think they will, But that was my side there.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's important to really point out, going a little bit back, that there is an expectation with, especially, and not just with security, not just with where we are as a country, not just with trades and exchanges, but also if we're really going to get into it at this point, and I don't agree with it, but we're talking about the federal government that's handing out cash to states as well.
Hmm.
And it's like, if you want to enjoy those things, there is a set of rules to be in this club, right? Like, the United States of America obviously is not a club; it's a nation.
Hmm.
But the idea is that there are certain, and I think one of the things that's lost, and we've discussed this before, but the Constitution is not a the Constitution is not, and I want to use my words correctly here. The Constitution is not a declaration. It's not an establishment of rights. It is a ratification of rights, right? Like, it is an acknowledgement of rights. It's not, hey, I have rights because of the Constitution. It's the Constitution states that I am,
You already
I'm
have them.
endowed
Yeah.
those rights, and the government must respect those rights. And we're seeing a lot of states vindictively, I think, go after a lot of these rights when it comes to firearms, and we're also seeing a dichotomy here.
And
And
I
I
will say it's not the first time we've seen this post Bruin.
absolutely not.
We obviously Bruin came out in 2022, so that feels like forever ago. It really wasn't, 4 years ago. And we saw a bunch of states come out with these very restrictive where you can carry what I would call sensitive places laws. Basically, public sidewalks can't have a gun. They, for a lack of a better word, declared their entire state, hey, you can't have guns because it's sensitive places, which Bruin, by the way, specifically said you couldn't do. And so this vindictiveness isn't new.
No,
It's
not at
but
all.
it's definitely gotten more aggressive, though. I think that's
And
fair.
it's also fair to say that, like, while we have made some headrows in the federal, or on the federal side, it's very reluctant. And it was supposed to be more than what it was, and it's
Mhm.
this reluctant give in to some of this stuff. And at the end of the day, like, we have to understand that we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic.
Mhm.
And currently, and I mean this, like, with everything that is inside of me, it's like we've come to this crossroads, right? And I'm not going to, and I don't want us to necessarily go down into the rabbit hole of immigration, especially in Minnesota
Mm.
currently. But obviously, we had the killing of Alex Peretti, which brought up this side of the argument that a lot of people have been, pushing from the left, which has typically been anti-gun. We're like, hey, it's our right to have firearms to stand up to the federal government, and it's kind of like there's a
And
lot of Republicans that are out there. They're like, yeah, dude, like, and I don't want to say Republicans because I'm
there's a
not.
lot of pro-gun people because
There's a lot of
obviously
pro-gun
I
people.
was
It's
going
like,
to say
that's the whole point.
there
Like,
was definitely Trump himself, President Trump, and some people in his administration definitely said the wrong thing on that. I'm not
oh,
going.
100%,
I mean, they
100%.
came out and some of it is this is the problem with our politics. It's become a Twitch reaction. So if they say one thing, I have to say the 180-degree opposite. And
100%.
I think a lot. This is not me excusing what they said, but they have walked a lot of it back, and I'm assuming a lot of that is because it was a Twitch reaction in the moment thing, and they realized, well, hang on, I didn't think this through. But
And
that's the problem. You're
let's
supposed to think things through
but
before
let's
you.
be real. Okay, there's a lot of people out there who are pro-gun, and again, we're not trying to get super into
No.
politics here, but, like, there's a lot of people out there who are pro-gun that need to understand and need to admit that the Trump administration, at best, gets a C on gun rights. Like,
Yeah, I
at
would.
best.
I would say that it's a C just by default because they are the best that we've had maybe since Theodore Roosevelt. And I say that, and I've said that before, and I went back and looked it up, and you go like, well, Theodore Roosevelt didn't do a lot on guns. It's like he didn't have to because the federal government really until 1934 wasn't doing anything on guns. 1934, the National Firearms Act really is the thing that started kicking off the massive gun control. We see some just, kind of what I call one-off laws. A lot of them are in the black codes of the Jim Crow South, where they did some one-off things, but we never saw a national push on firearms until the FDR administration, which happened to be his cousin. So go figure that. Um, but that's when I say that it's he was the last president that like understood them, and there does need to be just a realization, not to get too political here, but like no offense to Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't understand firearms. I don't think he deeply cares one way or the other about it. I
No,
mean, he owns one, yes, and
one. You know,
he was
that's
one of the
like
longest standing permit holders in New York City, which again at the time was really hard to do. So the fact he went out of his way to do that, I'll give him some credit for that. But we all know people like just because you own guns, it's like owning a car. Like I drive a car every day. I'm not a car person. I couldn't break down the differences between my engine and another one. That's just not me. So we just need to realize that while they are doing some good things, that does not mean that we take the foot off the gas because the reality is they should be so much better than they are. Which is really the sad thing is the fact that we have to give them a C. Like part of me like really hates doing that because like I'm basically admitting that
you're
there's
not
no
great. You're not
there's
doing
no
great.
other way for me to grade you though because no one's ever done the three things that you've done, but it's three things. It's like
And you've also made roads, anti-roads. Like obviously, we have some real serious issues with Pam Bondi and the way that
mm,
she's addressed a lot of firearms things. We go back to the bump stock thing, which was 100% a knee-jerk reaction. And
100%.
and I mean, let's be real. Like that's probably all a government cover-up on that entire shooting. I mean, none of that makes any sense whatsoever, right? But like, the point that I really want to make
It's kind of true
is,
for all federal gun laws when you think
I
about it. I
mean,
mean,
yeah,
68 Gun Control Act came out because of the John F. Kennedy assassination, which probably was a government cover-up. 1934 comes around because of the failed governmental policy of the Prohibition era. I mean,
right.
there seems to be a
It's
theme.
almost like the government is the problem, and then they're like, "Oh, there is a problem," not admitting that they are the cause of the problem. And then they're like, "Guess what? The solution is more government." And it's like, I don't think so.
That's not how that works.
And I just want everybody, and I mean this with everything that's inside of me. I mean this regardless of whatever aisle you're on, regardless of whatever walk of life you're on. If you live in the United States of America, if anything has taught you over the last like 6 months, it's that our government is run by a bunch of Satan worshiping pedophiles who are literally like elitist who think that they're better than you. And that's the reason why the Second Amendment exists, is because there is a concerted effort, a group of people who see everyday individuals as lower than them and a lower plane of existence. And really, that's something that has existed for all of time. Obviously, evil has existed since the sin in the garden, and we've seen this like imbalance of power throughout the years imposed by different governments. And the idea was we got to our government, and we're supposed to have these safeguards in place, knowing that the end, it doesn't really matter what type of government you set up. It doesn't matter what system it is. It doesn't matter what ideas you have. It doesn't matter what intentions you have. At the end of the day, mankind is evil, and it's bent towards evil, and the power corrupts, and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we've gotten to a point where it's like, hey, like open your eyes, smell the coffee. We're legitimately, trying to be run into this situation. And we've seen this even, like I said, over the past like 6 years. Things like COVID, they're trying to implement more and more power and control.
There,
And legitimately, like the reason why any of this exists in the United States of America is
a-
because of self autonomy.
so when you think about it, it's weird to say this because obviously we're hitting 250 years this year, which again we look at this in America as a really long time, but experiment is not even an infant. This is like an embryo in terms of history of America. If you think of what Alexander Hamilton said, and I know I'm going to get this a little bit wrong, but he said that tyranny can only exist with a standing army and a controlled press and a disarmed populace. And I would argue two of those things have happened. We do have a controlled press. There's no question. Now, is it controlled by one party? Both parties kind of feed into
Mhm.
that. So that's for sure.
We know who controls it.
Yes. And do we have a standing army? Of course we do. We have a standing army. And that's not to say that the founding fathers were 100% against the standing army because they did have one. It was small. And of course, they had a bigger one in the War of 1812, but a lot of founding fathers were around for that. So that's not to say that these things independently of each other, the problem, I guess I should say that part independently of each other is fine. It's when the other two come into play. And for all those people out there that go like, well, hey, um, show me the issues in the current times. My humble opinion, you don't have to look very far. We could look over at Canada where they're throwing people in jail for, things they say online. Or, I
The
mean,
UK.
you want to go back to 2020, they were literally seizing funds from truckers who weren't doing what they wanted them to do. Go to the UK, a guy comes over here just on it as a tourist and does what every tourist does. We have people come here to do it by sea from other countries, um, South Africa a lot lately, and they come over here and they shoot guns. That's what they want to do. Of course, they do what everyone does in the 21st century. They take pictures of it to show their buddies, like, hey, this is what I got to do. He gets detained and arrested. Yes, they drop the charges. The fact that they detained him for something that he posted online, and for those people who say they made a mistake, there's a thing called metadata. You can see where a photo was taken, and you're telling me that the UK police force, the Scotland Yard, doesn't have the ability to do that? They do, because we do. They have the same capabilities.
Yeah,
They
but
did
like
that. They
like
did that to send a message.
that's one example. Like you can go
Those are
online.
mild.
It doesn't take long to go online and figure out that like the UK is not
No,
pro free speech. They are not pro. They have no real constitution that they're behind.
and then for those
And
people who are like, well, that's in another country. It's like, well, do we want to start with Fast and Furious? Do we want to start with the IRS scandal? Do we want to go to the
100%.
ranchers back in was it 2012? And then let's be honest, we could go to Ruby Ridge. Guess who? Do you know who Ruby Ridge happened underneath? H.W. Bush, Republican president. That was not Clinton. Clinton came in towards the end. That is true, but it started underneath him, and it was H.W. Bush's ATF, and of course Clinton followed that up with Waco. Right. So this is in my lifetime. This is just and I'm not even going back to Killdozer, all these other things. And that's not to say that every person on this list, like I'm not a Branch Davidian believer in anything that they religiously. In fact, I think religiously they were quite wrong. That doesn't matter. Like I'm a Christian. We're both Christians here. In America, in the First Amendment, you practicing a religion is not a crime, and that's how they were treated. That's the problem. We can get into the Second Amendment issues there all day, but that was a First Amendment issue as well. And we are seeing this in the modern time. California right now is suing the catalog owners over the codes that they post on their server so you could 3D print some certain firearms, which, by the way, codes would be modern pen and ink and paper in the real world. That's what we use. We use digital. Could you imagine if they tried to enforce their, I don't know, their misgendering policies on the New York Times in New York?
And let's take this a step further, right? So we see what state is it that's suing well, you have multiple states that are trying to sue Glock right now.
We're one of them. Yeah,
You
there's
have
like 16,
yeah,
I
I think
think.
it's
It's
Illinois,
the normal
California.
16 that you would see.
And what was the company that they claimed modified the AR-15 to accept high capacity
Yes,
magazines? That's
that was New York. That was recently because of the Buffalo shooting. They had like this magazine cap thing that they put in, and they said because the guy was able to pop it out. You and I both know if you really are determined, you can do anything. So let's just take me for an
100%.
example. And I'm going to put a legal disclaimer in here. We're at what we call an O702. So that means we are a dealer of firearms with an NFA, what we call a special occupational tax, but a special one, which means we're a manufacturer. We're a firearms manufacturer, and we can manufacture NFA items. So we have a little bit of a special license for that. So I can take, and I have, we've taken a Century Arms MP5K clone, and we've converted it into a machine gun that you can go rent on a range, completely legal. Now that doesn't mean it's available for sale or anything. It's not. There's a whole bunch of restrictions to go in that, but we are allowed to do it, and then you get to come here and experience it. Anyone with any kind of knowledge to theoretically do that. Like that's wasn't uber hard. And that's not me saying go do it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying anyone that puts their mind to something can make it happen.
But
That's
again,
going
if
even
you
back in that's even going back in time. That's why I think this is insane. We know that 1911s were converted for John Dillinger 100 years ago. And you think how hard that was hard to do. It's like it's you cannot legislate people from doing things that are evil. And
But
I'm
like
sorry.
that's the thing that pisses me off more than anything. It's like we get into this, we're having this discussion, and it's like, hey, the activity was illegal.
Yes.
You know, like we're trying. It's almost like you're trying to like trump up this like chart, like, oh,
By the way, he
we need
murdered a
to.
bunch of people. That was
Yeah,
illegal.
it was like that. That's like the big thing, right? And again, I want to go to this. Like, this is the point that I'm trying to make. Like, we live in a world where currently we have states who are suing firearms manufacturers because of, you know, like Glock didn't make their gun hard enough for you to convert it into that, which is so, I mean, asinine, right? And
Glock has
then
never produced the switch. They never built it.
and
It
then
was
you have,
invented in Venezuela. They
but
never installed one. So that would be like you removing a breath or blow to start from your Ford and suing Ford for it. Like we never made that. We never installed it.
right, exactly.
That's the
And
exact same thing.
the point that I'm trying to make is like you have that, you have all, you know. And at the same time, go to the flip side here, and we have states who are actively involved in massive fraud.
Mhm.
We have a federal government that is protecting legitimate like pedophiles and pedophile rings and redacting their names and keeping them out of documents for prosecution. We have people who have committed legitimate major crimes who are not being prosecuted by the DOJ, who are being allowed to just like continue on in life.
That's not even getting into like let's just we I talk about Theodore Roosevelt. You know what he was famous for is trust busting. Google got slapped with an antitrust lawsuit underneath the Biden administration and lost. And you know what they did?
And nothing's happened.
Instead of breaking them up, they just paid a fine and they're continuing.
Yeah.
By
And
God, what are you doing?
yeah, we're
What good's law if it has no actual effect?
right, and we're at this point, you know, where we really are at
Crossroads,
a
I think.
crossroads as a country. Which look, we've been here before. We've been here with many other things. You know, probably most notably, we were here with the Civil War, and you know, a major fracture that happened. And I'm not saying that the United States can't survive this, but we again, because of this podcast and what we stand behind, the thing that we continue to go back on is like it's your right to have firearms, and you 100% should not trust the people. It doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. It doesn't matter what party you vote for. It doesn't matter anything. You should not trust anything that anybody in government has to say, because it's just proven over and over again that they're only looking out for their self-interests, and their self-interests oftentimes are run by foreign interests, personal gain, greed, and at a certain point, we're
Evil.
legitimately thinking it's just straight up evil. Like they're
Right.
motivated by
I will
evil.
say there's only one thing from government you should trust, and it's these 8 words that Ronald Reagan said. I'm here. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. You can trust that because that's him literally admitting a problem. And listen, he was part of the problem at times.
What was the name of the guy who tried to like twist that and be like, you know, like literally Ronald Reagan said, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And it's like, yeah, the first part of that was like the most
The eight scariest
scariest
words
words
you
that
can
you could
hear.
hear
Yeah.
from
And
anybody.
then that's not us to say that we, like I'm not going to say this economically. Ronald Reagan did a lot of good things, but there was also a lot of bad things, right? Because again, he was a part of the federal government that has a lot of the issues that we're talking about here. And I do think that whoever you are, doesn't matter walk of life. I don't really care. And I've told my guys at the shop, it doesn't matter. I don't. You could walk in with a Democratic shirt on, whatever. Exercise your rights. You know what's real makes it
Know your
real.
rights.
Yeah. You know what makes it really hard for people to take rights away is the ones you exercise every day. It's the ones you don't exercise when they take them and you don't notice, but you need them later. Um, I have a perfect story for this. I won't give her name, but there was a lady who came to me during COVID. I was just starting out as a gun dealer. Obviously, we were in the news for COVID here in Minnesota for a variety of reasons, and it was very unsafe. She came to me from Minneapolis, and I'm down here about an hour southwest of that, and she wanted to buy a handgun. She's like, people are coming in my yard, and they're burning things all around me. It's very unsafe, and I have no way to defend myself. And I was like, sure, we got this particular gun, and she did not have her permit to purchase, unfortunately. Um, and I was like, unfortunately, I can't sell to you in the state of Minnesota. Well, how come I don't get a gun and they all do? That's an excellent question. And by the way, in order to get a permit to purchase in Minnesota, there's no online way to apply. You have to go in person, which everything was closed because of COVID,
Yeah, and they're taking
and
appointments.
and you couldn't get an appointment for months. And she's like, I don't understand. I was like, I agree with you. This is why when you surrender, I'm not saying her specifically, but when the people who put that law in place 25 years ago, it may have seemed like nothing then. It became something later. It often does. And it's like those things that we say that's not a big deal. Those things end up becoming the hills that we needed to hold.
And
And I think that's why I will say this compared to where firearm rights were in say the 90s, we've come a long way. We do have organizations that you should absolutely support. The Gun Owners of America, National Association for Gun Rights, FPC, Second Amendment Foundation, here in Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, NRA, ILA. There's a whole slew of them that you should absolutely support because they are militant. But that also shows you that we can never ever let it down because like we were just saying earlier before we got on all this is there is always this reaction to whatever pro win we get, which they try to find a back door around it, so the fight will never end. And again, not to quote Reagan all the time, but he did say that your rights are only one generation away from ceasing to exist, and we have seen a lot of them cease to exist even in our lifetime, and we're fighting tooth and nail to just get a smidgen of them back. If you think about our grandfather's lifetime, the National Firearms Act goes into effect, and we still have it, but we didn't even affect it until 2025. 90 something years later, 91 years later, it took that just to take the tax down to zero. It took 91 years to
even
get
though
it.
there were Supreme Court rulings that says you can't have
Yes,
a
and I
tax
do
on
think that that's going to be positive. Again, GOA and FRAC and all those other people out there, go kick them some money
FBC,
because they are fighting that
National
right now.
Association for Gun Rights. We're good friends with those
Yeah,
folks.
absolutely. Maybe we'll
Big
get them
shout
on the
out to
pod one
them.
of these
Yeah,
days. That would be
get
awesome.
Ronnie out here.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, guys, that this is why when
And
people
and
say,
the other
"Oh, do
thing
you
too,
plant your flag?" Yes, you plant your
I
flag
want
on
to
your rights.
I want to make this point too, and I think something that really goes under noticed. A lot of people out here they talk about things like common sense, right? So let's
Mm.
let's talk about common sense. Common sense. You hear this a lot. Common sense, gun control. Common sense, whatever. My argument to that would be if you have an ounce of common sense and you see anything that the government's involved with, you would be like, yeah, everybody should probably have more guns because the government sucks. But
Well,
let's
you could also make the argument murder is bad. Is that not common
yeah, it's
sense?
common sense. Like
But people still do it.
you shouldn't drink and drive. The common sense, but we're not going after car manufacturers. But
But we
I'm
do
gonna
have
gi-
whiskey plates.
I'm
A
gonna
lot of them.
yeah. Oh my
Oh my
god.
God.
Yeah. Minnesota. So in Minnesota, you get a DUI, you get a W on your license plate. It's like an all white license plate. It's kind of like public shaming people, which I think we should probably go back to. Except I'd like to start public shaming
tar,
politicians.
tar and feathering
Tar
anybody?
and feathering. I think maybe
That sounds like a
some type of like maybe not actually tarring and feathering, but some tar and feathering like
in the public square at
in the
least.
public
You
square
know.
where we humiliate people who sell us out. But I want to touch on this like common sense thing, and then we'll actually talk about shot show.
Yeah.
uh I think it's funny, ironic I should say, because a lot of people talk about, well, we need to have these common sense laws, and I think that the permit to purchase, permit to carry in Minnesota is a perfect example why that makes zero sense, right? So in the state of Minnesota, if I wanted to buy something, if I want to buy something that has a semi-automatic function, if I want to buy something that has pistol grips, if I want to buy something that has detachable box magazines, any handgun,
Or frame a receiver, not
or
even a
or yeah,
completed gun. I mean,
just to buy a receiver for
yeah.
an AR. If I wanted to buy a receiver for the AR, right? I have to go to my local law enforcement. I have to fill out a bunch of information, and I think it is, in my opinion, it's completely unconstitutional on so many levels. Like part of the questions are, do you have any tattoos and stuff like that? Like I have to like physically describe myself to you, which is insane to me.
Mhm.
To exercise that right, like. I think that if you want to purchase a firearm in the United States, you really just have to prove that you are a citizen and you have to prove that you do not have a criminal record, and that's pretty much it. That's the way that it should be.
Mhm.
But we have this system where you go in and you fill out this paperwork and you have to send this off so that you can get an approval from the law
Local law
enforcement
enforcement,
agency.
which could take a couple weeks,
Could
but it
take a
could
couple
take up to a
weeks.
month for
I
some people.
think my pistol permit to carry took over a month. My
Mm.
permit to purchase took like 2 weeks.
Mhm.
We're not a Brady state, so we can't use the pistol or the permit to purchase or the pistol carry permit in lieu of a background check, which you could do in other states like Alabama, where we grew up.
Mhm.
And the crazy thing to me is like, so you're telling people that they have to go out and they have to get this sheet of paper where the government does a background check on them, and then guess what happens when they go in to the gun store to buy a gun?
We're going to do another one
We're going
because
to do
we
a
have to.
background check because we have to.
And
And
it's
so
by
it's
the
like,
way,
what's
it's the same background
it's the
check.
same background check. And the funny thing is that you want to talk about how efficient and wonderful the government is. The small business owner right here who runs a little gun shop, the range, and has like 5, 6 employees, can run that background check. And as long as there's no delay or anything, you're probably in and out of here in
10
15,
minutes.
20 minutes
By the
at
way,
the most.
some of our guys are fresh out of high school. Like
Yeah.
they figured it out.
And it takes the police department like weeks to get that background check on you.
And that's mostly I'll give them some credit, mostly because it's not you're not their priority. And I would make the argument, nor should you be.
Yeah.
I
They should be
mean,
going after criminals, not
right?
not doing a background check that you have to get anyways when you go to buy a gun.
Yeah.
So it's
And
like this
that
redundancy that does nothing to stop or deter anybody because you're gonna have to go get
and it also
a background
shows
check.
that these people passing a law, they have no idea that you're getting
Yeah,
background check
they
at the
have
store. They had no idea.
they're like, oh man, we need to do something so that you have to get a background check to buy a gun. And it's like, well, you already have to get a background check, and you still have to get a background check to buy a gun. Now in
Same,
Alabama,
same. I just might add is in 1998, right? The NICS check that we're talking about goes into effect online. Uh, do you know what they didn't do? Is they didn't update the 68 Gun Control Act, which doesn't allow you to sell handguns, frames, and receivers across state lines. Because back then, in order to get a background check, you had to go to your local sheriff. And if you're in California, they may have no idea what you did in Rhode Island, right? Because it's all local. Well, now we have what the FBI runs, which is the NICS stands for National Instant Criminal Background Check System. Means it's national. Everyone reports to it. They're required by law to. So if you don't, you're technically in trouble, right? Why can't I sell to someone in South Dakota to run the same check on me? Doesn't matter if I live there. They didn't update it. So now we do it all the time. Iowa stuff like I'm sorry, I have to ship it down to an FFL for them to go do what I could do in 10 minutes.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, I think the real main reason for that is because they don't want people
Buying guns.
buying guns.
I mean, let's be real.
in-
That's what it's
in,
about.
in restrictive states, buying
Correct.
guns that are not restrictive. Although it is on the onus of the gun shop to make sure.
Correct.
But anyways, the point of all of that is that the government sucks. But you know what doesn't suck?
Shot show.
Shot show. Shot show was a lot of fun.
was.
And there's a lot of really cool things. I think the big theme from Shot Show that's worth discussing is this is absolutely the year of the suppressor. I've never in my life seen so many suppressor manufacturers. A lot of different price points getting touched on. A lot of new technologies coming
That's
out.
what there was that suppressor code. Was it anechoic? It was like 3 weeks old. It was
No, that
no
wasn't anechoic. That was
ambient.
ambient.
It was 3 weeks old, and they have some of the coolest technology,
Some of the
which we'll
coolest
go,
technology.
we'll get into
Yeah,
in a
we'll get
minute.
into that.
But when the fact that you can run
Anechoic
It-
makes good cans too. by
They
the way.
do, they do. And I'm sorry, I've confused the two. That's not to say that they don't. They make excellent cans. It wasn't. I'm picking one or the other. We own a lot of cans, and I like a lot of different ones. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, it's just the fact that we're in an era where someone could do that in like 3 to 5 weeks and have functional models on the sales floor, not just one, like a bunch.
I met with Slade, which a lot of folks know from GBRS,
Mm.
and started the Irregular Defense Group, Irregular Design group as well. And Irregular Design's making a new suppressor. And when we were talking to him, he was like, dude, we had like 7 CAD drawings for new suppressors 2 weeks before SHOT Show, and we had them printed out, and we were doing like legit testing at range day and stuff right before SHOT Show. So yeah, the speed in which a lot of this stuff is coming up is huge.
Technology is amazing.
And
B&T literally had one of their 3D printed metal machines in their booth. You could watch them do it. It's mesmerizing to watch it work. It's hard to describe because this is probably our father coming out in me just a little bit on the technological engineering nerd, but you're just watching this machine make something that could be full auto rated. You could put 1,000 rounds through it in an instant, no problem, and heat resistant, all that. And it's going to do it in an hour, and it's ready to go. It's just ready to go. Other than slapping the serial number and registering it per federal rules, you can take it out right then.
Yeah, it's
That's cool.
like we said, it's exciting. It's something I think we're looking forward to seeing more of. And but the other thing that I wanted to talk on is obviously there's a lot of new technology that's coming out. There's some companies out there that are utilizing European technology that's been around for a long time. I think most notably Lyman Products, sonic core suppressors were, I can't remember if I don't know if it was like Norway or something like that, but I think one of the Nordic countries, they had those suppressors for a while. Very inexpensive. They're coming in. I'm not going to say the price because we got to put things out, but they're coming in extremely inexpensive on the lower end, which is
Then
huge for a lot of people because there's a lot of people who want to get into suppressors and they're like, why would I spend $800? Why would I spend $800 to protect my ears and prevent TBI and
even
things like that?
my even like the collector in me, and get shout out to Ian McCollum for doing a video on this recently. But you got like Dead Air putting out that what PV7, the Russian retro can
The PBS,
or
yeah,
PBS, which
yeah,
again, yeah, internally it's modernized to our standards than what it is. But the fact that we have companies that could do that, where if I wanted to source like a true retro build, I couldn't do it. Now you could.
Well, okay, another great thing to bring up, PTR.
PTR.
PTR brought in that new. PTR has the weirdest. I can't 9 SDM or
Yep.
something like that. But it's a true MP5 SD system where you're bleeding off gas on supersonic loads to make them subsonic, super quiet. But the cool thing about it is because the stamp no longer costs money, it's a well, technically it's a 3 stamp gun because you have the SBR, but you can get it where it's just the SBR, and then you have that expansion chamber that goes over the ported barrel. So you're bleeding off the gases that are coming from that
Which is
that
technically a
round,
suppressor in and of itself,
which is
right?
a suppressor in and of
Yeah.
itself, which is why it has to be tacked,
Yeah.
even though that's the dumbest thing in the world
It's like the
because it's still loud,
XM
but we're not going to get into it.
177, right? That.
But it's threaded for hub compatible threads. So, like, you can buy, it's a true SD system. I know there are a lot of SD firearms out there that aren't really SD, it's just a barrel that has a suppressor on there.
Yep.
It's an actual SD, which actually has the ports to make the round subsonic, and
And they modernized it
and
with
they
the hub
modernized it
space.
to where it's a hub compatible, so I can put whatever 9 millimeter suppressor. If I already have a 9 millimeter suppressor, I'm like, I don't need another 9 millimeter suppressor. I can just thread it on there, or I can try different 9 millimeter suppressors that might have different applications,
Hmm.
might be smaller, might have more flow through, might be, or more importantly, we have no idea where the suppressor, and this is why I think this is a cool technology, is because we don't know where the suppressor technology is going to end up in the next few years, but like hub compatible seems to be something that's going to be evergreen.
Hmm.
So what if an amazing, like the most amazing 9 millimeter suppressor comes out next year, or in 2 years, or in 3 years, or whatever the case is? Now I have the opportunity to take that and put that on my SD MP5. So that's very cool.
I think that kind of highlights something we said, and I don't remember which episode, but we were talking about the fluctuator, where the NFA, because of that $200 tax up, even the fact that towards the end of that, the $200 didn't mean what it meant. It still meant something. It neutered innovation. It
100%.
neutered a bunch of things that we are now like getting really excited about. And again, I just mentioned the Raider. That's technically something that had been done on this over 100 years ago. Just a modernized version of it. Or we're seeing now suppressor technology. Most people don't know this, but the suppressor was invented and patented in 1902. So that means, you know, 124 years ago, the suppressor was invented. This is not new technology. And it's kind of like that meme, right? When people buy used cars and they think that 10 years old, you're thinking of the, 1995 Ford F-150, and it turns out it's, you know, 2016, and it looks very different. That's kind of what we're seeing is like in people's heads. Wow, this is really new. It's like it's really not. We're just now finally flushing out that technology because the restrictions put on by government, let's be real, neuter innovation. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what walk of life this is. Government neuters innovation. It never inspires it.
Yep.
Inspiration comes from the private market, which is also for all of you pro-Americans. They're like, yes, military, which we are too. They are huge beneficiaries of the private gun market in the private gun world because we're the ones flushing this stuff out, and they turn around and apply it on their end.
And just to kind of go back to this, the theme of this the theme of this
Mm,
podcast is that the government sucks.
it does.
So just remember that. Keep
I,
that in the
I
in
think
the.
another cool thing from SHOT Show that should be mentioned though is the night vision technology that's starting to come out, which is a lot of it's digital, so it's not the old school like you see. It's a lot of digital stuff. Now, yes, there's pros and cons to both sides. I'm not saying there's not. I'm not. We have no idea where that's going to go either, though.
My prediction, I told you this already. My prediction is SHOT Show 2027. Hollow Sun drops nods.
I think
I think
that's.
they're
I
right
mean, when
there.
you look at a lot of the IR stuff that they're doing,
Cue in the comments about how Hollow Sun's just. Some guy commented on my YouTube and was like, Hollow Sun is just using the American market to T&E all of their products for the Chinese military. I was like, oh, okay.
mm,
All right.
I think everyone's using the American products to T&E for whatever military is around the world.
Also, if we're going to pretend like. Never mind. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
That's probably a whole episode
That
in
is
and of
of
itself.
itself. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of the other things I think that is cool is, and we have talked about this for years, as we sit here surrounded by all of these really cool old guns. Retro is back. Retro, anything retro. Obviously, there were some big ends.
Thank you, Stranger Things.
Yeah, way before Stranger Things.
No,
Freaking hate Stranger Things, but. Retro is back. We're seeing a lot of older designs, things that people really have wanted to see for a long time, kind of making a comeback.
PSA in their T48 rifle.
Right.
FAL.
So I was going to mention like H&R has kind of been doing this for a while. Brownells has their retro line,
Mhm.
and that kind of started with like some of the AR-15 stuff. Then we go to SHOT Show, and you see like some companies out there. Shout out to Gear. Is it Gearhead?
It's the
Gunworks?
Gearhand Gunsmiths. Yep.
Gunsmiths.
Down in
and they're
Texas.
I think Charles out down there is working on the.
It's the Nambu Type 100 Torini.
No. He called it the Tensei. I think.
Tensei, yeah.
Tensei.
And I do want to take a
Tensei
moment.
Sensei.
Yeah, I want to take a moment. Just when you see true collector gun people who just we love the purity of things like this, right? The fact that on his clone, he put the mum where it was supposed to be, and the
Well,
Japanese.
actually, it didn't have a mum.
He
He
didn't-
put the mum on there because he was like, people want to see the mum. But
Well,
it
yeah,
actually
I
it doesn't
meant,
have the mum.
that
And
was
this guy actually knows what he's talking
There
about.
was that, and then he put the Japanese writing though right where it's supposed to be on
Yeah.
the tube.
I think it
He
was
went
putting
out of his way,
Nagoya Arsenal markings
Yes.
on it and everything.
and it was just like you go. It just makes you kind of tear up a little bit. You're like, someone gets it. Like someone
And the
gets
other
it.
cool thing about him, and we could do a whole podcast just on that dude, but like he knows, and obviously, like, look, we realize it's not a real Type 100. It's pretty much impossible to get a real Type 100. They're
There's 13 known ones in the
and
in
they're
the U.S.
most of them are in museums. Like it's just unattainable.
The rest are at the bottom of the Chinese Ocean.
8mm Nambu is not only almost unattainable, but it's probably one of the worst cartridges that has ever existed. It's anemic on every level.
The magazines are non-existent.
Yeah.
And they were problematic. So I mean, and that-
but the point I'm making is it's like it's cool to run into a guy who's like, hey, I think this is super cool. People obviously want this, but like I want to make this where anybody could work on this. You could fix this yourself because
also
you
it's
have,
affordable. We can't
Right.
say the price, but oh my god, when you gave me the price, I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
That's
and,
just
and
your
it-
cost.
It's running off of like a lot of AR-15 parts.
AR-15 trigger, PPS
PPS
43
magazines.
magazines. The firing pin in it is AR-15.
The
Now,
bolt
tube-
head, I think the rotating bolt head is AR-15, and so it's just like it's not just that he made something. He made something that's sustainable that you could fix yourself. And same booth under the Vanguard name was also Roswell, who's making the SR3M Vicker rifle,
Yes.
which is a really another thing. I think the United States there's
And they have the ammo for it
They
too,
have the
which
ammo,
was
which is
really cool. 'cause
important,
Can't run it without it.
right?
So
I think that the idiom that there's nothing new under the sun really rings true in the gun industry. A lot of people think that the United States, the West, has pioneered the subsonic market, subsonic firearms, and that's really not true. It's really, if we really want to get into it, it was the Soviets who had a huge impact on subsonic firearms. They were experimenting with it a
And
long time ago.
it's not just that. PDWs, like all
Oh,
the
yeah.
stuff that we are now like seeing, and we're like, oh yeah. I mean, Springfield.
We should do a whole podcast on this because I'm really hot about this with the AKS 74U, because at the time the Russians basically came out, late 70s, early 80s, and they're like, there's no point in having a
Submachine gun pistol cartridge.
an anemic pistol cartridge and a submachine gun. We're just gonna shorten our rifles, and everybody in the West was like, that is not accurate and it's not powerful and it's stupid. And then we get into the 2000s and everybody's like Honey Badger, Mark 18, everything like that, and they're like, oh yeah, like we should definitely like replace the old
MP5 or whatever they
MP5
were
or
using.
whatever with a 5.56 or a 300 blackout, and it's like it really does feel like maybe the the ultimate execution when we get into some of the subsonic stuff is maybe a little more polished and a little bit nicer, but it's legitimately decades behind the Soviets. Like,
It's got its roots in the Soviets. Now, I will say the only thing that I do wish that the United States will do, we did not see this at SHOT Show. So, SHOT Show 2027, guys, somebody out there doing a retro build. If someone could do something with the 7.62 by 25 Toke
100%.
caliber,
And they were doing stuff over at the Vanguard booth.
They
They
were.
had that BNT. It was the BNT SPC9,
and they had
and they had the lower that
they had
takes
the PPS 43. It takes the fire control group, but they made a whole chassis system for
well, it takes an AR-15 fire control group, so you could put in an FRT, but it
Yes.
accepts PPS 43 magazines.
We were talking about two different things. They
Okay.
also had one that you could buy a PPS 43 parts kit. It would take the lower part of it, which is not the receiver in the PPS 43 because the top part's cut, and it made a full modern
yeah.
chassis with a quick change barrel. Which again, for someone who I love parts kits. Now, of course, we build them for you to rent out here, so it's a little bit different, but it would give you an option to buy something that's relatively inexpensive on the parts kit market and actually be able to freaking use it.
Right.
Like it was really cool to see.
But it was
that.
in 9mm, wasn't it?
Yeah, they had really chambered it, which makes sense. I mean, you don't.
100% it makes sense, but like we need a company to like do like. You look at 9mm 45, and dude, I keep saying things. I'm like, dude, we should just have another podcast on this. But like, you look at 9mm 45 40, obviously the 1986 Miami-Dade shooting and the moving away from 9mm, and you see all the leaps and bounds that 9mm has made, especially in the self-defense market, with different loadings, different bullet types. How good that cartridge has really gotten to the point where there's a negligible difference between like 40, 45, and 9mm. When we're
Even
talking
like
about
380
per
9mm has come a long ways.
yeah, I still hate 380, but
fair.
But there's like a negligible difference in that cartridge, and it's just like, what if somebody took that same like passion and applied it to 7.62 by 25? Again, we're pointing up here because we've got the
SA-26.
Yeah, the SA-26.
It is a CZ, guys. Yes, SA predates CZ in terms of name, but the same company.
But 7.62 by 25 is an incredible bottleneck cartridge. And we talked a little bit earlier about, again, I'm going to give credit to the Soviets here, the Russians really, because I don't know if
Toke actually started with Russia. It did.
Okay.
It did. It obviously was flushed out in other countries, but
still, giving them credit, they
Warsaw back and
saw that pistol cartridges were kind of weak and anemic, and you needed something that had more umph. And so bottleneck pistol cartridges, which were great in submachine guns, and it was almost like they had this idea way back in the day where it was like,
and they did it for their handgun originally,
Right.
which was like kind
and
of
they were
wild.
like maybe a little too much for the
Yeah.
handgun. We need to have kind of a normal pistol cartridge for a handgun, but this is a great submachine gun, and we should just keep this in the subgun. So I think that's super.
Papa.
Yeah, the
PPS Papa Shaw.
I think that's a great cartridge, and I'd love to see more companies do that. We're gonna have to do a part 2 because it's getting kind of long. There's a couple other things that I want to hit on before we kind of cut this off,
and then we'll do a SHOT Show part 2. Tune in to the next episode because we got
talked
more
a little
things.
too. We got a little too hot about.
Yeah.
You start talking about the government, and you start getting angry, and you're just like, God, I just want to rent wood chippers and throw these pedos in them.
I will say, if you have conspiracy theories, please put them in the comments down below because we will cover them. Because I very much enjoy that, and truth is, they're mostly not conspiracy theories.
Yeah, we're gonna say conspiracy.
Anyway, back to SHOT Show.
Yeah. So the other big thing I think that's worth mentioning, some things to kind of bring up. I go back and forth on this. So Gestamen, Hungarian company, they have a new pistol that they're trying to bring into the United States. I think it's cool. I don't know how practical it is, and I'm not necessarily going to say that it's the most practical thing in the world, but I think it's super cool. You can change between a striker fire and a hammer fire. There's some reasons why people like that. There are folks out there who do love the hammer fire. I know there's a ton of people who are like, they're answering a question that nobody's asked. And to a certain extent, I'm like, okay, yeah, but like Keltec does that all the time, like it's kind of cool to have
There's
a
just
system.
more cocaine involved with Keltec than there is.
Snowing down there. It's cool to have a system where you can easily go back and forth for those folks who like that single action, double action trigger. Some people find a little more confidence in the single action, double action trigger, and then some folks really like that striker fire trigger.
It's a really, I think another thing we saw this in Shot Show 2025. So I don't want to say that this is necessarily the theme of this Shot Show. For sure, suppressor technology for sure is the theme of this Shot Show, but people are looking at modular very different now. When we said modular in the old days, it would be like the AR-15, the things that you could take on and off, put on as attachments. Then that kind of trickled into like SIG was doing it with their fire control units, right, and their pistols. Now Guesstiman is taking it to the not really the fire control unit, it's the fire
action.
the fire action itself is now interchangeable in about 10 seconds. Like, and again, in terms of practicality, there's definitely debate to that. This is a Hungarian military adopted firearm, by the way, so it did do well in the stress test. I went and looked it up. It did very well, actually, in the stress test. Actually beat SIG, for instance.
And just to put this out there, like Hungary takes their military pretty seriously
They do.
after the fall of the Soviet Union.
do.
So
So, like,
they obviously found merit in it.
Then this is not saying that we should listen. I'm not saying we should adopt it. I'm just saying we should when they say that this is a good mark.
I'm not saying it's the most innovative thing in the world. I'm just saying I want
different.
one.
Yeah, I want one. It's different, and it's just like to see people take like, hey, what else can we make modular? And even that PPS 43 from Vanguard, like it's those little things that you go, you have no idea where those kind of ideas will filter on out, and it also again kind of negates the whole federal gun control laws because what we consider the firearm part uh, is based in 1934, and it's pretty blurry at what makes the firearm now. It really is. It's extremely blurry.
100%. And you can go again.
Which
Another
probably
podcast.
Yeah.
You can go into how some companies have the uppers, some companies have the lowers. Like you look at a lot of the, like Strybogs and things like that, where it's the upper. Then you look at the AR-15 where it's the lower, and it's just kind of like, where's the?
That's not even like that's recent. Like if you even go back in time and you look at what the ATF requires you to cut up on parts kits, like what they consider the receiver. Like for instance, Thompson has the whole trigger part on down below. All the upper holds the bolt, but the upper is what they cut. It's not the trigger function side of it.
Right.
It's very weird where the lines are drawn, and there really seems to be almost no rhyme or reason to it, right? I mean, it's just anyway, like you said, a whole nother podcast when it gets into why the federal government sucks. That'll probably be a continuing theme as we go through this. Actually, it'll probably be interwoven through most things that we do. But with that being said, I do think that when it comes to SHOT Show, that they had an overarching theme, but there's a lot of cool things we saw. And I think there's one thing that is kind of missed. We can close on this if we want to, but of how the SHOT Show is laid out. The SHOT Show is very different from NRA in the sense that it's hitting a bunch of different things. So there's 3 levels to it, and I mean literally there's 3 levels to it. So on the third level, you have what we would call the manufacturer forum, and that's not the entire day, the entire time we're out there. That's only for 2 days, and that's like your metal suppliers. That's some of your machine makers. Those are the things that firearm manufacturers are looking for. So that they have a whole section for there. Then there's a whole section, a whole room for just police law enforcement gear, tactical gear, whatever they need, even military gear, because there are military guys like 3-star generals walking around looking at things, not just from our country.
Brazilian Bope was there.
Yeah,
there,
I saw Israeli guys there. I mean, there's people from all over the world, all walks of life, and including the media. I mean, CCP State TV was there doing stuff. Like they're people from all walks of life. So they got that. I mean, I did.
So were the Taiwanese.
I did
to stay far away from each other.
Yeah, they did. But I did a brief video on minigun mounts. Like again, you and I can't own a minigun, but they're there to show it off for these guys. It was really cool to see. So you have that level. Then you have what we would call kind of the main level, technically level 2, but it's the main level. And that is where you see the Springfields, all the big boys for the most part are. Some of your major distributors are there. That's where you see the Kuna, all that good stuff. And then there's the basement. Basement are for companies like Guesstiman or Gearhead, Gunsmiths, and Vanguard that are either trying to break into the U.S. market from another country, whether they're established or not, or if they're new in another country, or those guys making either innovative things or smaller manufacturers that are just making it. And what I think was cool at SHOT Show, and granted they haven't released it in the United States yet, and before we came on the podcast, we're debating if they ever will, but S&T, which is going to theoretically do the Daewoo re-release in the United States, was in the basement in 2025. It was on the main level in 2026. You literally watch some of these guys grow, or fortunately or unfortunately, depends on how you look at it, these designs that really are innovative in the basement with these small companies get bought up by the larger
Perfect
ones.
example of that is Stuff and Things. Stuff and
Mm.
Things was making the PP-19
Yep.
Bison. They were making the Groza kits and stuff like that. And now they're partnered up with Palmetto State,
Say,
like
yeah.
releasing a lot of that stuff. They also they're beta testing a KH9 covert with BNT that takes the PP-19 magazines as well. So
And
you
like
see
the
that.
H&R T48 rifle that they're releasing, the receivers are DSA arms.
Right,
I've
and H&R obviously is a sub brand of PSA, but
say,
they're
yeah.
kind of doing their own thing, and yeah, they're working with DSA on that. But
So it's
like you said,
cool to
there's
see that growth.
a lot of companies working together, and mentioning companies working together, Dead Air and Ruger
Mm-hmm.
bringing a whole line of cans out that are very very cool,
Magpul
very
Zev
cool.
with the FDP,
Magpul Zev,
which maybe another.
technically that's Zev is owned by Silencer Co. So
Yeah.
technically it's Silencer Co. Magpul and Zev.
Zev, yeah.
Which the FDP has a threaded barrel now. So Silencer,
That was one of my major
Silencer
questions.
Co. was in on that a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, a little bit.
If we're gonna shoot this, we might as well shoot this
Suppressed. I will say I do love the fact that they made it look like a 1980s camera. You want to talk about retro? When it folded up, it was like that looked something straight out of
I just
like
love
your
like
grandfather's.
when it first came out, like whatever 10, 15 years ago, and they first showed it off, and they're like, just like a big flashlight. You're out walking your dog. Now it's like, dude,
Thing's huge.
flashlights are like
Yeah.
now. Like,
It's even
it'd be odd if you're walking around and you're like, what does that guy have like a little brief?
right.
What is that?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the first Alien versus Predator movie, but they were carrying around their G36
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
they do the thing, and then
yeah,
all of a sudden it deploys. That's the first thing that came to mind when I saw it. Now it doesn't deploy that easily like that. It'd be cool if it did. And then compared to like some of the Flux,
There was
like
just
it's big.
there was just a briefcase, not the there was just a briefcase MP5 that they found in Syria and the Syrian conflict.
Mm.
I'm just like, just so upsetting
That we don't have that.
they get to enjoy stuff like that. But
So,
I mean, I say enjoy. They're in the middle of a war. It's probably
I
not
tell
the
you what, I
appropriate
would
thing to
give up
say.
my shoes for that though. I would be
I've been
like,
seeing like some of the gunsmithing they're doing on STG 44s, and I'm like, can we not? Like, we'll talk about sporterizing things later, but can we
that's
not?
our next
Like,
podcast.
yeah, let's not do that. One of the other last things that I want to touch on, I know we're going a bit here, but I'm so excited about this. So I'm going to ask you what you're most excited for SHOT Show. I'm going to let you go first. What is the thing that you're most excited for? And if you take mine, I'm going to be, no, I'm just kidding. What is the thing that you saw that's just like, this is like, have to have this. This is the coolest thing.
Oh boy, that's hard because there's so much I wanted to buy there. Like I immediately realized, well, I'll never be a millionaire. But um, I know this is a cop out, and I totally get it's a cop out, but and it may never even happen. I'll admit the K2 rifle from S&T is what I want. The more I played with it and held it there, it's just like the fact that we ever banned the import of these things is insane in and of itself. But what it meant to, and I think that is.
What about the K3? SD
Yeah, that was
9mm that they had there too. It's
that
like
was
one day that would be cool to import.
actually a couple of their handguns too. I really liked. I was
No,
like,
they can't import those. You know why?
yes, I understand why, but
Can't import silencers.
you cannot. And unfortunately, there is a thing called the Gun Control Act of '68 that basically made all NFA imports illegal. Hence why B&T, a Swiss company, makes everything down in Florida.
And this is the part of the show where we remind you that the government sucks. So.
Anyway, I think that admittedly, the rifle itself is interesting. Obviously, it's kind of an AR-18-ish variant, but it's also the symbol of what it meant. It was the stand against the mass, which maybe just because I lived in Minnesota, kind of means a little bit more.
It's the LA riot gun.
Yeah,
the rooftop Korean gun.
And that was good to see them. And it was good to see them upstairs. But what was yours?
The Daewoo clan, if you know what I'm saying. If you're not cool unless you do the Daewoo. The I posted a video on there, and somebody was like, Daewoo, the car manufacturer? Somebody else responded with, I don't know, like Daewoo.
I have a Daewoo microwave.
Yeah, they were like, Daewoo, the refrigerator manufacturer? I was like, Daewoo, the microwave manufacturer? I was like, I don't know if you guys know, it's a state factory. They make pretty much everything.
They make cars.
It's
we
like
just
Fig.
can't legally import them into the United States, but they make cars. I went down to
Swiss Fig. It's the same thing. They literally make
everything.
firearms.
They make refrigerators and everything.
They make clients.
We went down to Honduras a couple of years ago on a cruise, and we actually rode in a Daewoo van. Like it was like we can't
I
get
have a
the.
microwave back home that would go with this van.
I can understand why they're not imported. There was a bit of a problem with the exhaust going inside the vehicle, but I don't know if that's the Honduran issue or the Daewoo issue. Um, it's hard to know.
Okay, the thing I'm most excited about, it's a tie. I'm gonna
Okay.
cop out. I'm gonna do a tie. Number one. I don't know which one I want to say first because I feel like whoever I
Is it
say
the
first is who I
L85?
want. Yeah, Murdoch and Company is
Yeah.
bringing the L85, the I forget what they call it, but the SA80,
Yeah.
their version of the SA80 coming into the United States. It's super sad, Great Britain moving away from that, destroying all the ones, and there's really no L85s. I've had the opportunity to get to shoot an L86, which was really, really cool.
That was down at Battlefield Vegas, right? They have.
Battlefield Vegas, not the greatest. I'm not, and you kind of have to preface some of this stuff. I'm not saying that this is the greatest rifle in the
It's just
world.
historically
It's just
cool.
cool, and I want one. It's something that's like,
It's like
man,
a FAMAS.
yeah, it's like I go in my collection and be like, another thing somebody needs to. There's no excuse. Somebody should be making a FAMAS.
Well, so
You
I
want to
said
go in? Business idea? Let's go.
yeah, let's do
Let's
both
make a
FAMAS
FAMAS.
because I was when you went down and did the video on Murdoch and Co. and doing the LA5, and you just hear this guy's story. Former British soldier. This is what I used. Royal Marines. Like this is what I used.
Well,
And
that was the
and
one guy. The guy who owns it is just a younger kid
Right.
who was like, I just want to
right.
live in the
The
United States.
the
and I
Royal
wanna
Marine
have
was
a-"
like it was cool to be able to bring my rifle to you guys that so you could appreciate it. And there are collectors that will. Like there are, and to have someone, we need to find the French person that wants to
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Also, the FAMAS, obviously, they're moving away from. I assume they're going to cut them all up. There's
Look,
got to be some parts that could come
if
from
you
the
want to
United States.
come build a FAMAS here, just I can't speak French, but
Just drop a DM
up.
with some contact deets, and we will be talking to you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
an 0702. Come on, I'm a firearm
Yeah.
manufacturer.
I'll,
Let's do
I'll
it.
bust open the piggy bank to
Yeah.
invest into that. But no, I think that's super cool. They're doing it the right way. They have
Got some real parts in some of them.
well, yeah, they have that limited
Run.
collector series. I don't know if I can't
It's a
remember
bit
how many it was.
pricey.
It was
It was-
definitely pricey, but
I want to say it was only like 50. It wasn't many.
it wasn't many. But it comes on an actual infield made receiver. You get I think you get either an ACOG or an LCAN, depending on what you want. The guys who turned me onto this, huge shout out to those folks over at Shield Sights. A lot of people don't know Shield Sights, and you should. I think there's this kind of concept about Shield Sights that, with all of the different optics manufacturers that are out there, you have Holosun, you have Trijicon, you have
Sightmark.
Geotech, you have you have Sightmark.
AGN.
You have all these companies out there that I think Americans are really familiar with. The entire pistol optic idea was pioneered by Shield Arms
It was.
or Shield
Shield Sight.
Sight. Shield Arms is great too.
They
But,
are. The
pioneered
9
by
reloader guys. Shout out to you guys.
Shield Sights turned me on to that L85. The guy I was talking to, the guy he was like, dude, you should come over. Take a trip over the pond. We'll go. I was like, well, can we go shoot like L85s with the British military? And he's like, yeah, but you go check out this dude in the basement. You might be able to do that here in the United States. So I was just stoked about that. I think that's super cool. It's something I'm definitely gonna buy. Want to get my hands on and just get some rounds on it. It's something you can really show off, a collector's piece.
It's something that very few people will have. If you're like, if I was going to spend money as a collector, but I want something that is truly unique, and that's not me to say that this stuff is awesome, but like for instance, like let's take an M1 Grand. A lot of people do have them. We produce millions of them. There are a lot of them out there. If you want something that like, if I'm going to spend money, I want something that's truly unique that turns heads. Like you come out to the range with an LA5, people are going to turn around and go like, where the heck did you get that? And everyone's going to want to shoot it. Just remember that the ammo is expensive and charge them for it. But I mean, it's just one of those things that it's an eye draw. Like you just turn. It was the same reason when I walked by the Type 100, I just stopped and turned. It was like, no way. I know exactly what that is. You have to go look.
And the Type 100 is very cool. And I feel bad leaving it off the list, but I didn't go to that booth for the Type 100.
That's fair.
I popped over there for that SR3M.
Yep.
And that's the other one that I want to give a shout out to. I'm a huge AK guy. I love AKs. AKs are some of the coolest platforms that are out there. I think that the SR3M is interesting because it's not really an AK. It's a short stroke gas piston, not a long stroke gas piston. There's a lot of just interesting design features, and it's an advanced, in a lot of ways, it's an advanced rifle that really the United States and the West doesn't have a lot of experience with. It's not something that you see. There's nobody else out there who's doing that, but
Are there
it's something.
any in the United States real ones at all? I
I,
don't know.
I don't necessarily think so, but if you're paying attention to the news, you're watching the war in Ukraine, you see these things pop up here and there. So it's cool because of that reason.
Do
It's a relevant firearm that is really, and it's interesting, I think, to me, because you don't come across things that often in the world that we live in with this globalized information. You see things all the time. You don't come across things where it's like I really don't know that much, and I really have no real hands-on experience with
Mhm.
certain things. And I think that that's one of those things that I think that the idea of 9x39 is very, very cool. 9x39 back in the VSS and the VAL, and this being a more advanced version of that. Number one. Number two, I legitimately believe what a great option for home defense. You have a round that's going fairly slow that you can suppress, that's not going to blow out your ears, that's going to have very familiar controls on something like the
3 points of
AK.
contact
3 points of contact, very small, compact. You can
Also,
throw on all kinds of
with the round, especially with the suppressor, the recoil is going to be negligible. I
Yeah.
mean, really negligible. It's something that almost anyone could operate too. I mean, you don't need a ton of experience to operate it, especially in a short distance range situation. If you're not a heavy shooter, you can be fairly accurate with that thing.
So I think that's
Yeah.
that's my pick. I'm gonna go with those two.
That's fair.
And again, I think that the cool thing about that SR3M, and I mean, you could make the argument for the L85 as well from Murdoch and Co. I feel bad because I can't remember what they call it. Something I think it was something at 85, but both of those are very, for the most part, pretty modern firearms that still have a lot of practicality in them. If it was something that you wanted to train
Modular.
on and really use, you could. I just think both of those are super cool. That's by far though not everything, and we're gonna have to do episode 2.
Yeah.
But I think we've talked this one to death
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good. We'll get back with
tease into the next one
yeah,
because we got more from SHOT Show. Honestly, we could probably do a month on SHOT Show if we wanted to. We won't bore you guys completely with all that, but
and we're gonna get some guests on as well.
Yep.
Some exciting things when it comes to guests.
and I do want to give a huge shout out to our subscribers. We hit over 100 subscribers, despite the fact that we haven't really produced content in a while because we've been busy. So I do appreciate that. We will do our best to be more consistent. That may mean sometimes that we'll do a split screen stuff depending on where we're at. Maybe we do some screen recording stuff, but we're going to do our best to, even when we're mobile, to be on top of it. And
we're working folks.
Yeah.
The more we don't get paid from the podcast,
Nope.
but the more subscribers we have, the more content that we can produce in the future. So be
Absolutely.
sure to like, share, and subscribe. Most importantly, be sure to get in there and leave some comments.
Mhm.
Tell us why we suck, or why our opinion sucks, or what we said that you hate. Or get in there and let's all team up and bully the government, because that's really what we want to see more of in the future.
And I would say if there's a topic too that you were like, hey, no one's ever discussed, I would love just to see your take on it, a question. Shoot us a comment. Like I read them. I read all of them.
100%.
So like I try to respond to all of them too. So please shoot it over. Like we are always like, hey, what do you want to talk about today? We always have ideas, but we're open to almost anything really.
Yeah, we really are. We'll do anything for $20.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's too rich for your blood. I would take 5.
Yeah, we're not picky.
No. But anyway,
Times are hard.
yeah.
No, but thank you guys so much. Just again, kind of want to close this out with a couple of things. Number one, again, Ash Wednesday. Neither one of us are Catholic or Lutheran or anything like that. But
I'm a recovering Catholic. So.
I did go to a Lutheran service, obviously, today. But the most important thing in the world is your relationship with Christ. Taking the time to seek a relationship with Him and build His kingdom. The most unconquerable person in the world is somebody whose entire life purpose in focus is on the Lord, is on serving Jesus. And ultimately, we as Americans want to be unconquerable, and we want to be a reflection of Jesus, of Christ. So that's super important. Other thing is go USA in the
Yeah.
Olympics here. Pretty excited. I'm wearing my Brady Kachuk jersey, so shout out to Brady. Good luck to them as they go to play Slovakia. We've got a couple of friends in Slovakia. Shout out to Martin with Falco holsters.
Hmm.
I was texting him congratulations because they beat the Finns so much, and I'm gonna text them and be like, hey, I hate you for a day, but just a day.
Just a day.
Still love the products that you
Yeah.
guys make. A great holsters. Shout out to Martin and Falco, hybrid leather Kydex holsters. And I know it's probably annoying when I give shout outs to people, but me and him have a ton of experience in the firearms industry. And when we say shout outs to companies, it's because we've had like really positive
Hmm.
interactions with those companies. We've gotten to use their products, and we some of those products we use on an everyday basis,
Yep.
like Shield Arms. Their junk sack I carry it
Yeah.
all the time. Everybody makes fun of me for it, but I don't care. There's just a lot of great things out there, and we want to pass those on to you. We're not getting paid by any of those companies. We're not shills. Nobody has ever offered us any money to support the podcast. But
If you want to support
if you would like to, if you would
support the
like us to
podcast.
show a little bit, be sure to reach out to the email. So
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we're definitely not above it. $20 is $20. But
yeah, yeah. I'll throw the logo down there and
yeah, yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I will. I'll drive a Daewoo.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Hey, if
care.
you want to send us one of those vans, listen, I will drive it every day.
But no, seriously, lot of cool things on the horizon. Take some time to work on your relationship with the Lord. Take some time to enjoy the United States playing pretty dominantly in women's hockey and moving forward in men's hockey and all the other Olympic sports. But
Yeah, till
yeah,
next time, I guess, right?
till next time. Yeah. In the meantime, stay, keep your powder dry. Stay unconquerable. Stay vigilant.
And stay informed.
Stay informed. Really take on that Lexington and Concord uh, ideology where we're not going to be trampled over. We have our identity as Americans. We have our identity as Christians, and we're not going to just lie down and give everything up. So yeah, that's what I'd leave you with. Keep the powder dry.
Till next time, guys.
Peace.